The Battle of Macragge stands as one of the most iconic confrontations in the annals of Warhammer 40,000, a desperate struggle that tested the resolve and strength of the Ultramarines against the insatiable hunger of the Tyranids. This conflict, set amidst the backdrop of Hive Fleet Behemoth's invasion, showcased both the unwavering courage of humanity's defenders and the sheer horror posed by an alien force driven by a singular, all-consuming purpose: to devour all life. As Hive Fleet Behemoth emerged from the void, it carved a swath of destruction through Imperial space. Entire systems fell before the relentless onslaught, leaving barren worlds and shattered defenders in its wake. The Imperium, slow to comprehend the magnitude of this new threat, scrambled to react. When the scope of the Tyranid menace became clear, it was the Ultramarines who were positioned as the bulwark against the coming tide. With their home world of Macragge directly in the path of the invasion, the Ultramarines prepared to make their stand. Macragge was no ordinary planet. As the bastion of Ultramarine power, it was a symbol of the chapter's values: discipline, order, and resilience. The world was a fortress, its surface dotted with fortifications and heavily armed defense grids, while its population lived under the constant vigilance of Ultramarine oversight. For generations, the planet had stood as a beacon of stability and strength in the otherwise tumultuous Imperium. Against the Tyranids, it would become a battlefield soaked in blood and littered with the corpses of both defenders and invaders. The Ultramarines, led by their chapter master Marneus Calgar, understood the stakes. This was not just a battle for Macragge, but for the survival of the Imperium itself. If Hive Fleet Behemoth could not be stopped here, its momentum would carry it deeper into Imperial space, where it could potentially consume entire sectors unchecked. Calgar marshaled his forces, deploying fleets to intercept the Tyranid advance and preparing Macragge's defenses for the inevitable invasion. The initial clashes between the Ultramarines and Hive Fleet Behemoth occurred in space, as the chapter's fleet sought to delay the Tyranids and weaken their swarms before they could make planetfall. In orbit above Macragge, massive Imperial warships engaged in brutal ship-to-ship combat with the Tyranid biovessels. These engagements were costly, with both sides suffering significant losses. The Tyranid fleet, though diminished, ultimately succeeded in penetrating the Ultramarine defenses, and spores began to rain down onto Macragge's surface, heralding the start of the ground war. On the planet's northern pole, the Ultramarines made their stand. This region, home to the chapter's primary fortresses and training grounds, became the focal point of the Tyranid assault. The defenses were formidable, a network of bastions, trenches, and kill zones manned by Ultramarine forces and their auxiliary troops. The Tyranids, however, were undeterred. Their swarms advanced relentlessly, wave after wave of chitinous horrors crashing against the defenders in a ceaseless tide. For every Tyranid slain, another seemed to take its place, a living tide of claws, teeth, and bioweaponry that pushed the Ultramarines to their limits. The battle raged with a ferocity that defied comprehension. The Ultramarines fought with the precision and discipline for which they were renowned, holding their ground against overwhelming odds. Tactical dreadnoughts, or Terminators, formed the backbone of the defensive lines, their armor impervious to most Tyranid attacks, while their heavy weapons delivered punishing blows to the enemy. Assault squads took to the skies, diving into the fray to engage Tyranid warriors in brutal melee combat. The Ultramarine Devastator squads laid down withering fire, cutting down swathes of the enemy with heavy bolters, plasma cannons, and loss cannons. The Tyranids were an enemy unlike any the Ultramarines had faced before. Their ability to adapt and evolve in real time made them a nightmarish foe. As the battle wore on, the Tyranid swarms began to shift their tactics, probing for weaknesses in the Ultramarine defenses. Some creatures demonstrated a disturbing level of intelligence, coordinating their attacks to exploit breaches or target key positions. Hive tyrants, massive and intelligent bioorganisms, directed the swarms with an alien cunning that rivaled the strategic acumen of the Ultramarines. Despite the Ultramarines' efforts, the Tyranid tide was inexorable. Slowly, they began to overwhelm the northern defenses. The bastions that had stood for centuries were brought down under the sheer weight of numbers, their defenders slaughtered to the last man. The Ultramarines, however, refused to concede defeat. They counterattacked with ruthless efficiency, deploying reserves and utilizing their mastery of war to reclaim lost ground. Their resilience was bolstered by the knowledge that they were fighting not just for Macragge but for the future of the Imperium. One of the most notable moments of the battle occurred when Marneus Calgar himself joined the fray. The chapter master, clad in the indomitable armor of Antilochus, led his forces with unmatched bravery and determination. He personally engaged a swarm of Tyranid warriors, cutting them down with his mighty power fists and rallying his troops with his indomitable presence. Calgar's leadership was instrumental in holding the line, inspiring the Ultramarines to fight on despite the seemingly hopeless odds. As the battle dragged on, it became clear that the Ultramarines could not hold the northern pole indefinitely. The Tyranids had committed their full strength to the assault, and their numbers seemed infinite. Recognizing this, Calgar made the difficult decision to enact a tactical retreat, regrouping his forces at key fallback positions. This strategy allowed the Ultramarines to preserve their strength while inflicting maximum casualties on the Tyranids, turning the planet into a bloody quagmire that slowed the swarm's advance. Above the planet, the space battle continued to rage. The Ultramarine fleet, though heavily battered, fought on with grim determination. Their goal was to cut off the Tyranid reinforcements and isolate the swarm already on the planet. This task fell to Captain Cato Sicarius and his strike force, who undertook daring boarding actions against the Tyranid bioships. These missions, fraught with danger, sought to disable the biovessel's ability to produce and deploy more Tyranids to the surface. Sicarius's efforts, combined with the bravery of the fleet's crew, proved instrumental in turning the tide of the space battle. On the surface, the Tyranids' advance slowed but did not stop. The Ultramarines fortified their fallback positions, creating choke points and death zones that exacted a heavy toll on the invaders. The battle devolved into a brutal war of attrition, with both sides suffering staggering losses. Entire companies of Ultramarines were wiped out in the defense of Macragge, their sacrifices buying precious time for their brothers to regroup and counter the Tyranid swarms. The battle reached its crescendo when the Ultramarines lured the Tyranids into a final, decisive engagement. Utilizing their superior understanding of the battlefield and their ability to coordinate across multiple fronts, the Ultramarines launched a coordinated counterattack that caught the Tyranids off guard. This assault, spearheaded by Calgar himself, drove deep into the Tyranid lines, targeting the synapse creatures that coordinated the swarm. Without these bioorganisms to direct them, the Tyranid forces became disorganized and less effective, allowing the Ultramarines to exploit their confusion and push them back. The climax of the battle saw the Tyranids finally driven from the northern pole, their forces shattered and scattered. Though the Ultramarines had emerged victorious, it was a victory paid for in blood. The cost was staggering, with countless lives lost and much of Macragge left in ruins. The planet's northern pole, once a symbol of Ultramarine strength, was now a desolate wasteland, its fortresses reduced to rubble. Yet, in the face of annihilation, the Ultramarines had stood firm and triumphed against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. The Battle of Macragge would be remembered as a defining moment in the history of the Ultramarines and the Imperium. It was a battle that showcased the courage, discipline, and sacrifice of humanity's defenders, as well as the unrelenting threat posed by the Tyranids. Though Hive Fleet Behemoth had been defeated, the specter of the Tyranids would continue to haunt the galaxy, a constant reminder of the fragility of life in the grim darkness of the far future. In the aftermath of the Battle of Macragge, the Ultramarines began the arduous process of rebuilding. Though victorious, the cost of the conflict had left deep scars on both the planet and the chapter itself. The Northern Pole, once the seat of Ultramarine fortifications, lay in ruins. Its once proud bastions and training grounds had been obliterated by the relentless Tyranid advance, leaving only the echoes of the fierce battle that had taken place there. The landscape was now a grim testament to the ferocity of the conflict, littered with the remains of Ultramarine heroes and countless Tyranid bioforms. Despite the devastation, the Ultramarines wasted no time in addressing the monumental task of reconstruction. Under the leadership of Marneus Calgar, they began rebuilding their fortifications, ensuring that Macragge would be ready to withstand any future incursions. For the Ultramarines, The process of recovery was not only a matter of physical rebuilding, but also one of honoring the fallen and reaffirming their commitment to the ideals of the chapter. The names of the lost were inscribed in the rolls of honor, their sacrifices celebrated as examples of unwavering courage and duty. The aftermath of the battle also served as a moment of reflection for the Imperium at large. The Tyranid menace, previously unknown to humanity, had revealed itself as a threat of unimaginable scale and complexity. The defeat of Hive Fleet Behemoth was a victory, but it was also a grim reminder of the vulnerabilities within the Imperium. Reports from Macragge and surrounding systems detailed the horrors of the invasion, sparking widespread fear and a sense of urgency among Imperial leaders. The Mechanicus, Inquisition, and other factions of the Imperium scrambled to study the Tyranids, hoping to understand and prepare for future encounters with this terrifying enemy. The Ultramarines, for their part, took the lessons of Macragge to heart. The battle had underscored the importance of adaptability and preparation when facing an enemy as relentless and unpredictable as the Tyranids. The chapter refined its tactics, incorporating new strategies and bolstering its defenses. The experience gained from the battle became a cornerstone of the Ultramarines' doctrine, shared across the Adeptus Astartes to better equip other chapters for the challenges posed by the Tyranid swarms. For Marneus Calgar, the Battle of Macragge became a defining moment of his leadership. His actions during the conflict had solidified his reputation as one of the greatest chapter masters in the history of the Ultramarines. His ability to inspire his warriors and make difficult decisions in the face of overwhelming odds had been critical to the chapter's survival. Calgar's leadership not only preserved Macragge but also demonstrated the resilience and strength that lay at the heart of the Ultramarines' legacy. The battle also highlighted the critical role of the wider Ultramar system in the Imperium's defense. Ultramar, a cluster of prosperous and well-defended worlds, had proven its worth as a bastion against the Tyranid onslaught. The cohesion and organization of the Ultramarines and their domain had been instrumental in resisting Hive Fleet Behemoth. The events of Macragge reinforced the importance of Ultramar as a bulwark against external threats, inspiring other regions of the Imperium to strengthen their own defenses and emulate the success of the Ultramarines. However, even as the Imperium celebrated its hard-won victory, darker implications loomed on the horizon. The defeat of Hive Fleet Behemoth was not the end of the Tyranid threat. Reports from Imperial scouts and astropaths indicated that other Hive fleets were already making their way into the galaxy, each as vast and deadly as Behemoth. The sheer scale of the Tyranid menace became increasingly clear, as did the realization that the Imperium would face many more battles against this relentless foe. The Battle of Macragge also left a lasting legacy within the psyche of the Ultramarines. It became a source of pride and inspiration, a testament to the chapter's indomitable spirit and their ability to overcome impossible odds. The stories of heroism and sacrifice that emerged from the battle were passed down through the generations, immortalized in the teachings and traditions of the chapter. For the people of Macragge and the wider Ultramar system, the battle became a symbol of unity and resilience, a reminder of the price of freedom and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Yet, beneath the triumph and the rebuilding, there lingered a sense of unease. The Tyranids were an enemy that defied traditional understanding, a force of nature that operated on an alien logic. Their ability to adapt and evolve meant that every encounter with them presented new challenges. The Imperium's greatest minds recognized that the war against the Tyranids would be one of constant vigilance and innovation, requiring humanity to adapt just as quickly as its enemy. For the Ultramarines, the road ahead was clear. The Battle of Macragge had been won, but the fight against the Tyranids, and the countless other threats that beset the Imperium, was far from over. The chapter renewed its commitment to its role as the defenders of humanity, ready to stand against whatever horrors the galaxy might unleash. They knew that the sacrifices of Macragge had not been in vain, for they had secured not only the survival of their chapter, but also the continued existence of the Imperium itself. The memory of the battle served as a rallying cry, a source of strength for the Ultramarines and their allies. It was a reminder that even in the face of the most overwhelming adversity, humanity could endure. The Battle of Macragge, with all its bloodshed and destruction, became a beacon of hope and defiance in the grim darkness of the far future, a testament to the enduring spirit of the Imperium and the unbreakable resolve of the Adeptus Astartes.